Thank you, Pascal. And can I welcome to the stage Brendan Oldham from New South Wales ODPP. It's a hard act to follow, Australian unity, but the client we're going to talk about now is a really important part of the fabric of New South Wales. When you look at programs of work that you get to be involved in your career, and this was one that I think on my third or fourth day at Appian, I walked into a governance steering committee meeting at ODPP and thought, what have I got myself into? But it's been a really, really important journey for both, I guess, ODPP and Appian. Brendan, would you like to introduce your role at the ODPP and then just explain to the audience, who are not all from government, what it is that ODPP is responsible for within the judiciary here?
Thanks, Carl. I remember you walking into that meeting and thinking, what the hell are you doing here as well? So I think that was a long time ago. Brendan Oldham, I'm the head of IT for Director of Public Prosecutions in New South Wales. So we're an independent prosecuting agency as part of New South Wales Government. So we do all prosecutions of criminal matters across the New South Wales state. As I kind of joke with people, you don't want to be a customer of ours. We don't go looking for customers necessarily. So yes, it's quite an interesting space to be in. So we're about 1,000 staff within our organisation, probably about 800 lawyers, paralegal kind of construct there. We've got about 110 Crown prosecutors, which is similar to a barrister kind of construct, 50 corporate services and a few other staff around sort of the administration, strategic side of the organisation. We do one particular function, which is prosecute. So we don't have lots of multiple functions or procedures or groups or anything like that. So it's quite easy, in a way, for us to have a fairly narrow stack from a tech perspective, and a couple of applications specialised in looking after the matters. We're an investigative. No, sorry, we don't do the investigations. The police do all the investigations, so they do all the heavy lifting of filing the charges, putting together all the evidence and things like that, and then they supply us essentially with the brief of evidence which is in support of the charges, and then we take that through the court process. So we work obviously very closely with the police. We get a feed from the police. We obviously work across the table from people like Legal Aid and any of the private defence companies. And then also, obviously, the courts is a big part of our organisation where we have to participate in the wonderful court system. It's a fairly legacy system. We do about 16,000 matters a year, and we also do about 7,000 of those come with fairly substantial briefs of evidence associated with those. So, Brendan, can you tell us a little bit about what was going on inside ODPP when it comes to infrastructure and systems, and particularly, what your observations as the person responsible were? What kicked off the program of work? Why are we here? Walking in my first day, seeing a green and orangey screen with Comic Sans serif fonts everywhere and things like that was the system that I inherited, I guess, as part of the IT head. Essentially, the organisation had developed, since its inception, a kind of a base of a case management platform. It had been a bespoke system, and we just basically built on it with no real strategic intent behind it. It was just whatever felt like a good idea to do, we'd build it in this system because it was kind of the only core system that the organisation had, and had a little development vendor that could sort of answer everything. So we had timekeeping in it, we had document automation, document management in it, case management in it, you name it. Everything was kind of built into this system with no real thinking about it. So an interesting environment to try and unpick and move forward from. Yeah, very complex in the sense of the word, like I say, because we don't have lots of multiple systems. This was kind of the heart of our organisation. Yes. So it basically managed all of the matters coming in from police and through to the court system. So it did everything. So as you started to embark on the concept of a transformation journey and I guess share that message upstairs that something needed to change, and being an organisation with more than 800 lawyers in the room, I assume getting consensus on a direction was straightforward, or? Yeah, I'll put it this way, lawyers are trained to prove you wrong, and every step of the way they were trying their damnedest to prove the poor old IT guys wrong and stuff like that. It was a difficult challenge for us because in our space, in the prosecution space, there's no real example systems around. So you can't go off the shelf and buy some systems and things like that and see what's going on. And also it's a very paper-based environment, ecosystem and things like that. So a lot of our staff aren't used to working in modern systems and things like that, and people don't move around to a lot of different areas because you've kind of, if you're a prosecutor, you kind of got a few choices in Australia and that's about it type of stuff. Obviously some people work in some of the other private, from a defence perspective, but there's no clear technology. People go, oh, I want one of those, or can you have one of those? So we kind of had to try and build something from scratch to a large extent. And then the problem we had is people kind of didn't know what they wanted, so we had trouble. We couldn't go and build, from a greenfield perspective. It's interesting, the previous speaker said, try and make changes as you can and don't just rebuild what you did. Well, we took the opposite strategy to that. We figured the easiest way to try and get this little sucker going is to effectively copy the functionality of the system, and then build that so that it minimises change management for us and things like that. And we had to do a light switch. It was a light switch transition. We couldn't sort of progress anything on because people were in one system. We couldn't have them working in two systems and things like that. So we had to sort of turn off the old system on Thursday night and Monday morning turn on a new system for 1,000 lawyers or 800 lawyers across the place who needed to be in court on Monday morning type of thing. So
I remember, Brendan, the first time you and I sat down and had coffee outside the building, and I got a lecture from Brendan on there's no such thing as a minimum viable product when you turn on a judicial system like this. What did you mean?
As part of the legal sense, a lawyer never goes, or solicitor, lawyer, which way, the solicitor never goes into court 80% sure of what they want to try and do. They need to be 100% sure of what the outcome's going to be, and also of the case that they're going to try. So when we kind of said, hey, look, we've got to build this system, we're going to use some agile processes to build it and all that kind of stuff. I was kind of looked at a blank face across the table of the executive and say, we're not doing agile, we're not doing any of that kind of stuff. I need to know 100% of what it's going to look like, when it's going to be done, how it's going to work, how much it's going to cost, and all those kind of things. So I think that was the hardest position to do, to try and back them from that 100% down to, okay, well, we're going to build it and we'll show you how it develops.
It was a very interesting learning curve for me to come into an environment like this, and I see it right across my portfolio of public sector clients. A lot of the time what we're trying to solve for are very complex, either legislative or rules-based environments, and MVP is not a term that you want to use on the first day of a project. Like, we will be compliant when we go live, don't panic.
I know, somebody tried the ML Most Lovable product and that didn't go very well at all with the executives.
So we've progressed through the journey. We've got a transformation up and running. We're having lots of constructive conversations with colleagues through the journey. You've been in production now for just over 12 months. What was the adoption experience like, and 12 months in, how does it look today? So
the good thing is we turned it on and then didn't have to turn it off. So I guess that was a huge success.
Yep.
It was probably touch and go for a few hours it was a Tuesday morning. We didn't quite make the Monday morning turn off. It was a few hours on Tuesday when obviously 900 people hit the system, and we'd also had loaded in 20 years worth of data into the system as well the weekend before, and hadn't really been able to fully load test the system despite all our good intentions of trying to run all the simulators and things like that across it. It's been a journey. I think a lot of people, we have people that are very change resistant. They were in love with their nice little security blanket that they had before, and now all of a sudden it's a new system, and somebody said earlier, it got away from the tab key and the F4 function key and all those kind of things, and now they have to use a mouse, which kind of frightened a lot of people. But I think what people are now realising, and the big change for us has been the fact that we had to copy a lot of stuff that we brought across, and now people actually challenge and say, well, why did you do that? And we're like, well, that's what you wanted, type of thing. But now they're trying to think more creatively about, oh, well, maybe we should be doing this differently, or doing all those kind of things. So we have very strict processes driven by legislation and things like that. So we don't have a lot of flexibility with some of our processes, but that's the main area people are really adopting it, which is great.
A lot of the technologists and architects in the room might be wondering why we brought all those documents across. What were they all, and what does that history represent?
It's all matters for us, it's kind of like 20 plus years worth of matter information that comes across. So people information, a lot of charges and all that kind of stuff. So as an organisation, we need to always, sometimes an appeal could occur, and that's so we have to keep it for multiple years. We've got matters that might be running for 4 or 5 years and things like that can run. So we've got a lot of legacy stuff. We also kind of need to know if something pops up that somebody did 15, 20 years ago or something like that, and they're now in another matter or something like that. So there's tenancy and stuff like that we have to be conscious about. So yeah, we just had to bring all that data across from a system that was not necessarily the most destructive matter.
So the adoption, it was pretty much a big bang, pull the plug on the old system, flick the switch. The business, and I remember our first conversations, were not overly engaged or enthusiastic about transformation. Having now successfully gone through that program of work and a year down the track, what does it feel like inside the organisation? How receptive are they? What does innovation and the opportunity feel like now?
It's been a massive change for us. I think what we've seen, we had a system which was, I used to refer to it as the anchor around us from a modernisation perspective. We couldn't really move forward. Any change that we need to do in the system would take us 4 to 6 months to develop and another probably 6 or so weeks to actually fix all the defects that were introduced from the changes and things like that. So it was a very painful exercise, and things are moving rapidly. Legislation is changing a lot more quickly now, so we have to modify and keep up with legislation. We've got mobility, people in court now interacting in court. We're getting a lot more digital information coming in and stuff like that. So that whole change has been great. We're now trying to drive new systems. So our development team that's working with us, our partner Connecture, which has been along the journey with us, we've got resources from them. So it's great now having the ability for us to change more quickly. So we've got the developers on board. When we need to build a new system, comes in, basically the requirements come in and we're able to build stuff and things like that. So people are thinking a lot more innovative now across the organisation.
You have added to the portfolio not only matters, but 2 new applications. What are they?
It's funny, we should go and deal with complaints management. We put in a new complaints management system as well. So we put a complaints management system we put in place, and the one that was kind of interesting is a competition, but how quickly you can build things or whatever. We had an issue that came up with a task management solution. I won't mention any names or anything like that, but we had a very short window to replace a current task management kind of application that we had with a new system. And I challenged the team to say, okay, we've got till the end of the financial year, and that was kind of 5 weeks before the end of the financial year to get this thing done. So basically, it was one developer and a bit of testing and things like that, and we built this task management tool for our HR, finance people and things like that within 5 weeks. It was incredible, from concept through to actual delivery. It was live on, the first week. So I think that's a huge opportunity for us to be able to build quickly, add new features and things like that, because the level of technology that the organisation's had historically has been very low because we haven't been able to develop anything. But now having a platform that we can actually build, there's now a list of new applications coming in the pipeline that everybody wants, type of thing now. So
the list of applications is always interesting once you've successfully transformed and gone live. Where do you think those applications will come from? Is it more from the core business itself of prosecutions, or extending out into enterprise services?
No, at the end of the day, like I say, everything is kind of contained within our organisation to a large extent. I mean, there's a lot of digitisation going on across the legal system in New South Wales, which is kind of exciting, but it's very slow moving and things like that, especially in the criminal space. It's a very slow moving monster when it comes to digitisation and things like that. The courts are quite a bit behind. But we've really tried to build a system, and one of the reasons we picked the platform was to enable us to better integrate with the system. New South Wales government would struggle to build one central system. We're not structured. We're not organised like that financially as well as from a governance perspective. So we tend to build our own kind of systems and responsible for a lot of our own areas. And so the ability to integrate, I think, is the model that a lot of us are now looking at doing, so that once we start to introduce an end-to-end workflow of digitisation, we'll be able to just plug in, as it were, into that process to accept digital and then output digital and things like that, which is...
Reflecting now on the workforce and the other participants in the system, let me ask you about the prosecutors themselves and the new platform. How do you feel it's giving, or what do you think their experience is day to day between the old world and the new world? Are they relieved a lot of mundane tasks? Are they able to apply, the really difficult work of being a public prosecutor is very cognitive. Do they have more time for focus on that now?
It's getting there. I mean, our fundamental principle with this one was to get rid of the old system and position us for modernisation and things like that. So we've done some minor improvements around some of that sort of stuff, but we're still kind of just bedding down the system a little bit more and things like that. For us, the other big nugget we've got to try and tie into the system is the brief of evidence, which is heavily paper-based, mixed unstructured data and stuff like that, trying to get that into a system and be able to analyse that a little bit more and things like that. And then slowly we're now introducing more automation into the system. So trying to two things. One is to try and keep our people in the system. Obviously, compliance and all that kind of stuff is quite important with the work that we do. The old system forced people to work out of the system more than in the system. So now we're trying to move a lot more into workflows, approval processes, and all that kind of stuff within the system, so we can do full auditing rather than print the piece of paper out, sign it, give it to somebody who then signs it and then hands it up in court. Try and move that through from a digital perspective. So.
How about the other participants in this process? There are victims and there are witnesses. Any aspirations to bring them into an engagement?
Yeah, it's a good question. We've always had on our wish list is to kind of have a portal to engage. There's kind of two areas of this: is victims or witnesses, to see the status of things around the matters and things like that. So one of our to-do lists is to have a portal that you can come in and see when your court dates are, if we need to get information from you, and just sort of be a little bit more friendlier and interact a bit easier with victims and witnesses as that process. But we also sometimes use private barristers as well as supplemental resources when we've got too big a caseloads and stuff like that. So to enable a bit of a portal for them to more easily interact with us and get information around the matter and stuff like that are the two areas that we'll probably look at.
We have one. We've been talking about an environment and a platform and an agency that is pretty critical to the state of New South Wales. We enjoy around Australia and up in Singapore and now in New Zealand similar sorts of experiences that are reflective of the importance and mission criticality of the work we do in government. Appian globally likes to recognise innovative, thought-leading and really market-leading programs of work. And my last task whilst we're on stage is to give Brendan an award. This is a global award, an innovation award that was announced at our Appian World in Europe, I think back in May now. And it's taken us this long to actually get Brendan on a stage and bolt him down.
I've been waiting, Carl.
So without any further ado, I really thank you for the engagement. I thank you for the patience that you showed with me on the first day. And, this was a program of work that I will never shy away from and say it was easy. This was difficult. It was difficult for Brendan's organisation. It was difficult for ours. But it's a great testament to the tenacity of our customer success team and now Connexia who are managing it, and also Brendan's team to get this very, very critical platform delivered. So without any further ado, Brendan, I'm going to finally hand you the award and let you carry it home.
Thank you.